start with Dr. Gerstner, present this award to Dr. Kindler. She has had a remarkable career for someone so young in the development of new drugs for mesothelioma and other cancers. But I met Hetty Kindler a few years ago when she was in her role as president of the International Mesothelioma Interest Group, a grouping of scientists who seek to make advances and review among each other advances in the diagnosis and treatment of mesothelioma. She's had a most remarkable career, and because of her work, affecting the lives of so many with asbestos exposure, this award is particularly appropriate. And Dr. Gerstner, did you want to make a comment or two?
One comment. I'm in Dr. Kindler's examining room waiting, and yeah, sometimes you have to wait. And then there's a soft knock at the door, and a Loretta Young type, she swirls into the office, the skirt flying out, and this gorgeous smile on her face, and she sits down, and she asks you, what's your story? And she listens while you tell your whole story. And she asks you questions, and she'll ask you more questions. Then she'll take out the x-rays, the pathology report, and her notes. Oh no, yes, forgot about the exam. Breathe in, breathe out, not too hard. Pokey, 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 does that hurt? And then this magnificent glow of compassion envelops her whole being as she slowly explains to you your condition, what she feels, and she envows you as an intelligent human being. You are part of this healing process. And she goes through the various options of treatment, and then you, along with her, choose the appropriate treatment, and together you travel down the road for healing, hopefully. So it is my honor, it's my pleasure to present to the Irving. I got to give it back to you. The Ernie Selikoff Lifetime Achievement Award to a marvelous person, my friend, my physician, Dr. Hetty Kindler.
After an introduction like that, what more can I say? But thank you very much, Ron and Steve and Linda and to the whole group. This truly is an honor, and I truly am flattered. And my whole career, or much of my career, has been focused on trying to take care of patients with mesothelioma. But because there still is not yet enough that we can do, much more of it is focused on what can we do for the patients now and in the future to try to target the biology of this disease, to try to improve the quality of life and the length of life for patients now and in the future. And again, thank you very much.
Our next award is the Tribute of Hope Award, and we're giving it to the Unity team, and that's Tanis and Kimberly and Brad. They represent some of the people at the Center for Asbestos-Related Disease, or the CARD Clinic, which you've heard about in the last presentation section. And it's with great pleasure that I'm able to bestow this award through the ADAO on the clinic. It's done some remarkable work, and what it's going to do in the future will clearly be remarkable. This is something that's going to be around, and it's going to really rewrite a lot of our knowledge, I think, about asbestos treatment as well as the diagnosis. And this is the front line, as you saw, in the wilderness. And I am very pleased to be happy to bestow this award upon the three of you on behalf of the CARD Clinic. I don't want to put my fingerprint because I'm sure they don't want to have that hold on to, but I will give it to Tanis.
We've always worked as a team, and that's what it took to go up against the barriers, the forces that we faced over the last 10 years. And certainly one person couldn't have done it. We know that. And these two people here with me are equally important in helping us get to where we are today. And so I think they should say something too. I've said enough.
Well, we just want to appreciate the unity in our community, in our clinic, and with ADAO. Thank you for this honor.
I think, again, as Brad mentioned, you know, it's not only taking a team effort to make this happen, but it is a community. But most of all, we have learned so much from our patients. And those that are affected have always touched us and taught us every single day. And being part of the ADAO family has just broadened that horizon and also provided us an opportunity and honor to be involved with other professionals and researchers to help us to understand and hopefully find new hope and new cure. So thank you.
It is my great honor and privilege to present the next award. As you see, the Tribute of Inspiration Award. You've heard so much about how it takes unity, it takes many people to do things, working in the wilderness, but there are some times and some situations where people are pretty much on their own, and they get to be especially important people because they can show us what even one person can do. And standing next to me is one of, I guess I would say, three people in my life, three women in my life who I have a very hard time saying no to. My wife, who's not here, Linda, who's in the back now, but it's very hard to say no when Linda calls and asks for something. And this lady is the third one that I find it very hard to say no to if she asks for something. Having said that, I will urge you, please read the description of Fernanda in the booklet. I mean, we think we have it tough in this country sometimes fighting bureaucracy and maybe fighting some nasty words that get printed about us. But when you get personally and professionally attacked and you are threatened and your family is threatened, it takes a lot to keep going. There are so many people that would not. And the story's there. So with no further ado and giving her some time, it is my great privilege and honor to give to my dear friend, Fernanda Gianassi, the Tribute of Inspiration Award.
I am very touched. I will read, to be short. I am truly honored to receive this award from the ADAO. In fact, it's the ADAO which inspires me, and by the leadership and the empathy, which is part of everything they do. Other friends here, like Linda, Lori, Barry, Dick, and our dearest professor, Arthur Frank, are also inspirational for us. On behalf of my colleagues in Brazil and I are grateful for this recognition of the Brazilian campaign for social and environmental justice. The struggle continues. Thank you.
The political struggle to end asbestos poisoning in America, to mitigate the terrible toll of asbestos-related diseases, and to protect the legal rights of victims and their families seems unending. Certain friends in Washington have been steadfast in their commitment to our cause. Senator Richard Durbin has been in the front lines of these efforts. He urged the Surgeon General to issue last year's public warning about the hazards of asbestos. He has given his support to each year's Senate resolution establishing Asbestos Awareness Week. He has acted staunchly as a member of the Senate Committee on Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions, and of the Senate Judiciary Committee to further the interests of victims and families. We personally witnessed his fierce opposition to proposed legislation that would have stripped the legal rights of victims and their families and would have allowed companies to continue to trade in asbestos with impunity. Today, in no small measure because of the efforts of Senator Durbin, we have hope of achieving an effective ban on asbestos in America, of establishing a national awareness and education program, and of funding much-needed medical research and treatment programs. So it is with great appreciation that ADAO presents the Tribute of Hope Award to Senator Richard Durbin.
Well, thank you very much for this recognition. I'm sorry I was running a few minutes late, and I hope it didn't ruin your program. but it is honored to be with you. When I was announced and came in the room here, and Linda said the assistant majority leader, I always pause for a moment and think about that. What most people are kind enough to avoid is telling you the whole story, which involved losing 3 straight elections before I ever won one, which is part of my humble origins chapter in my life. My wife, Loretta, of course, was by my side during each of those political campaigns when I fell short of winning the election. And the last time I ran, fourth time I ran, I should say, for the House, she said, "This is it. You know, you either win or you stop." So I ended up winning and proceeding from the House to the Senate. And so I said to Loretta, I've been married 43 years, I said, now that I'm in the leadership in the Senate, I said, in your wildest dreams, did you think that I would end up, after losing all those races, in this position? And she said, "Dick, in all honesty, you're not in my wildest dreams." So, so after 43 years, you know, she's entitled to change the channel. That's okay. I understand. But it is great to be with you, and particularly to receive this award. My life before I was elected was the life of a trial lawyer in small-town America, Springfield, Illinois, representing personal injury cases and medical malpractice cases. I did defense work and plaintiff's work, the kind of things that small-town lawyers do. And I was surprised when I arrived in the United States Senate Judiciary Committee and looked around at my 18 colleagues in that body and realized only 2 of them had ever taken a deposition, had ever had a civil trial. They really don't have much familiarity with the actual practice of law in the trial work that most of you do for a living. And it shows when they come forward with their grand solutions, which close down the courthouse doors and change the approaches and procedures. It basically reflects the fact that they've never sat across the desk or table from a victim or the victim's family and had to go through the grim reality of what lies ahead, which involves a lawsuit which may or may not succeed, a lot of time, and the potential of losing when it's all over. And they've never faced a family where you know, as a lawyer sitting across the table, that you're their last chance and their last hope for anything. Otherwise, their lives are going to be severely compromised because of the injuries that they've sustained. So I know that when these issues come before us in Washington, reform issues as they call them, I've often had to stand up and urge my colleagues to stop and reflect on what this means in the real world. I want to acknowledge the ADAO co-founders, Linda, who escorted me in here, and Doug Larkin, who came up the steps with me, and your national spokesman, Jordan Zivon. Is he here? Jordan, I was a big fan of your father's, great guy, and your hair is perfect. My wife and I have this ongoing joke every morning when my hair's a mess. She says, I said, "How do I look?" She said, "Your hair is perfect." So, and all the other courageous family members and patients who worked so hard to end the scourge of asbestos-related illness. Your dad, on his last album, said, "Keep me in your heart when I'm gone." It was one of his lyrics. Through your support of ADAO, you're keeping the innocent victims of asbestos disease not only in your hearts, but as part of our national agenda. ADAO is the voice for victims of asbestos-related disease. We've just gone through another battle, you know, on healthcare reform. It was an interesting battle, and our fear was that at the end of the day, we would be compromising the rights of victims of medical malpractice, and that did not happen. We had a meeting in Blair House a few weeks before the critical vote. It was an all-day meeting with Democrats and Republicans. And Senator Harry Reid, a trial lawyer himself, said to me, "Durbin, your assignment is medical malpractice." I said, "Okay." And I waited patiently throughout the morning and into the middle of the afternoon before I was finally called on by the president to say a few words. I happened to follow Senator John McCain, who had just called again for caps on settlements and judgments and limitations on medical malpractice in court. And I said to him that we had the Congressional Budget Office take a look at this issue and how much it would save if we imposed a $250,000 cap on pain and suffering. And they said it would end up saving $50 billion over 10 years. $50 billion sounds like a large sum of money, but $50 billion over 10 years in our field of medical practice in America accounts for 1/6 of 1%. And they also went on to say, if you put these caps in place, more people will die. We anticipate that there'll be more negligence and more malpractice. And so it was quite a trade-off for 1/6 of 1% to buy people the possibility that more people would lose their lives. And I told him a story, which I used to tell repeatedly, and which doesn't relate directly to asbestos, but does relate to your day in court. It's a story of a woman who went to a major hospital not a few minutes away from here in Chicago to have a mole removed from her face. And during the course of surgery, a tragic accident occurred and the oxygen she was receiving caught fire and burned off her face. And she literally faced countless reconstructive surgeries. I met her. Her life was never the same after that event. And I said to the people who gathered at Blair House, what is that worth? $250,000 for all of the years that her life was changed, for the scarring, the deformity, the pain of all these surgeries. I think it's a very telling example in your field as well, of those who through no fault of their own were exposed to asbestos and now are asking for a helping hand when they're the most vulnerable, and their families are asking for a helping hand to put their lives back together. After that Blair House event, I received an email from the lady at the local hospital here. She said, thanks for telling my story again. And I just wanted you to know that 10 years later, I still face more reconstructive surgeries. That's the reality of what medical care can mean. The fact that you're willing to stand up and fight for people and their families, to give them that voice, makes all the difference in the world. I would just say at this point that we have more work to do. Patty Murray's effort to eliminate asbestos in America is a good one. I don't know why we haven't done it yet. We should do it. We ought to make sure that fewer and fewer people are ever going to be exposed to the dangers of asbestos. We can't stand by while millions of Americans face that exposure and that possibility. I know what it means to stand by a loved one who is suffering from a long-term illness. When I was 14 years old, my father passed away from lung cancer. And I stood by his bedside and watched it happen. And it was a gruesome experience that I still remember to this day, many, many years later. You're there to make sure that there is an awareness of this danger and to make certain that we do everything in our power to give everyone a fair hearing, due process, and their day in court. Thank you for this nice award. I appreciate it. Thank you.